Let's deal with the present value one. In my experience, this is the one that is one of the most challenging to think about because the thinking is really from right to left. And so it's oftentimes a reverse for people. But if you look back at what we talked about in the notes, when I suggested that it's often expressed in present value terms, the importance of present value is it allows us to consolidate an uncertain future where we've made reasonable predictions and to bring it into a current form and ask, what if we could just do everything today? So the question that we'll deal with that will give us a simple introduction will look similar in terms of its outcome as 259.37, which is actually the number that we calculated in the future value video. But let's treat it standalone with our process standing over to the right. What is the present value of 259.37 invested for 10 years at 10%? Same basic idea then, now that I've read the problem twice, is to document the assumptions. So when we're asking for present value, that's an easy enough thing to know that we're looking for. But whenever we see this idea of money at a given point in time, anything that is not a present value is by definition then a future value. So this happens to be a future value of 259.37, but it occurs at a specific number of periods in the future, which I see as an annual number of periods, which will be 10 periods for us. Then lastly, I see that there is a rate that is again not qualified, which means there's no label on it. So whenever that happens, we can again, it's assumed an annual rate. And so we'll make that 10%. Throw a little breaker line underneath there, and then let's get to the calculations. Now, again, instead of doing typing of present value, future value, payment rate, and number of periods, I'm just going to pick and point and do present value. And because I've copied that, I should be able to paste it all down. But I know I need a payment in there, so I'm just going to cut those and move them down one. And then I'm going to type in payment and make it annual so that they're all synchronous. And then we'll put that in yellow to remind ourselves that the qualifications all need to be the same. Then what I'm asking for here is for a present value. So let's go ahead and make that a nice bold yellow color. And then we'll make all of these our accounting format. So let's go ahead and wire up then our different values where we know we have a present value equal to 259.37. And we have no payment, so I'll just type in a 0. Our number of periods is 10 in years, and our rate is equal to 10%. While in the last videos, I've shown how you can use the formulas financial. When you do formulas financial, if we look back at the last one, look at what it put in the formula bar for us. It put in just a formula that was equals, and then the abbreviated letters that are here on the side. So I can type PV, open up a parenthesis, and then I can just use my arrows to select the different values. So with the rate, comma, and again, be careful if you're using comma versus semicolon. After rate, then I need number of periods, comma, then I need payment, comma, then I need future value. Now I don't even need to type the closed parens. I can just hit enter. And now amazingly, you see that it's negative $100. And the interpretation of that relies then on us presenting the numbers right. So there's one of two ways you can think about doing this. You can either indicate this is the amount of a cash flow out needed to earn 259.37 in 10 years at 10%. And I like the way that is indicated in Excel because remember, Excel needs a negative number for an investment. Or we could type it into more of a narrative terms in terms of saying something that an investment goal of 259.37 requires an initial investment, a term that we often use, initial investment of, and then I can just type it in narratively as $100 if invested for 10 years at 10%. So in running through the process, just make sure that the presentation of the numbers makes sense, because if I look at this right away, what is the present value of 259.37? Excel shows us as a negative, which is true for the functioning to make it work in Excel, but it's not really a great way to use the interpretation in terms of the way that we articulate the narrative. So that's how you do the present value function.